This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski. On today's show, a major update on a return for an AEW wrestler, as well as WWE being in play for some of the biggest stars in New Japan. We'll get into all of that. Of course, we got to take a look at what's going on around the wrestling world. We've got Elimination Chamber coming up, probably one of the most highly anticipated pay-per-views in a very long time. And before we get everything kicked off and started, first off, I want to apologize. Missed last week. Had to go on a family trip. Because of that trip, if I sound a little bit nasally, I'm dealing with a bit of a cold here. Not quite the COVID castle as we used to have, but the girlfriend does have COVID. I do not somehow. I don't know. The world is crazy. But I did miss a fantastic week of wrestling last week, only to come back to what I'm going to call a very meh week of wrestling, especially with this massive pay-per-view that we have basically taking place tonight. Doc, welcome to the show. Look, last week you said it was unreal, and I caught up on all of it, and I thought it was a fantastic week of wrestling last week. This week, I thought for having one of the largest storylines in the last 2 years, SmackDown was such a so-so go-home show for one of the most highly anticipated pay-per-views that we've had in a long time. Now, the final 10 minutes of SmackDown were magical. I thought Raw's go-home show was, I don't think you necessarily needed to watch it. I thought what we got from AEW this week was kind of on par with all of that. What was your take on this week of wrestling, and what did you think of SmackDown's go-home show where Sami Zayn was in Montreal?
Yeah, I loved it. I thought that, yes, you said it. The final 10 minutes was really magical, obviously, with the crowd. The Montreal crowds, man, they just always love their professional wrestling. They're always into it. They were, even in the stuff that you and I maybe found not to be as interesting, obviously, Asuka, Liv Morgan, you had Bray Wyatt appear. The Montreal crowd, man, they're just into it. They love their professional wrestling, and they just basically adored their guy. I would have loved to have seen Roman Reigns. I would have loved to have seen a showdown. I would have loved to have seen some physicality. But it was really set up to be, this is our appreciation for what this angle has been. And I can't crap on it too much because in the end, man, Sami Zayn is the culmination of a beautiful angle that's been told. One of the better angles that has been established. You even have Eric Bischoff saying, man, when I look at the totality of this angle, it probably even beats the story of the NWO. Now we got to look to what is going to be the payoff. What's going to happen at Elimination Chamber? Could they have done more? Yes. But I think, too, the other stuff that's going on, Gunther had another good match. The other stuff that's going on, while it doesn't seem as important as the big build, WWE is doing a decent enough job of building towards WrestleMania, where every match, at least so far that has been announced, will have some intrigue and some build-up. And that's all you can ask for. Is it the same level of storytelling that's being told, being given in regards to the level of what the bloodline is? No, but there are some good stories that are being told. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for tonight. I think it's going to be a nice show, but I do think that you are on the exact same page that Kenny and I talked about last week, which is I thought the angle where you have Cody Rhodes talking to Sami Zayn, I thought that was kind of a little bit of a test to see, would it be okay if we did insert one more person? And Kenny and I did talk about it last week, and it all signs point to that. And last week I kind of said obviously it appears that Sami Zayn's over. He deserves the spot. It's just unfortunate that three dudes are at the top of their game, because I just want to see Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns at the same time too. But if you insert Sami Zayn in there, that just opens up another level of discussion.
Yeah, I mean, WWE finds themselves in a really weird spot with a couple of things. And I think you touched on it perfectly when you said everything that they're doing is building towards WrestleMania. It's not necessarily towards this pay-per-view. Now, this pay-per-view, again, super anticipated. Like, I'm geared up for it. I basically cleared my schedule to sit down and make sure I'm not going to miss any of this. I'm not going anywhere anyways because I'm sick, but I had marked this on my calendar because I'm so engrossed in this story with Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns that this is appointment viewing for me. This is what is at the very top of my list for my Saturday. So the push towards WrestleMania, yeah, it's going on around this storyline. And I think this is something that we have to maybe get used to with Triple H. Triple H isn't so nearsighted where he's only building towards what's next. He's building for the long haul. He's pushing down the road, right? And everything is pushing towards WrestleMania. And he's got this story pushing towards WrestleMania as well. But for me, the go-home shows just fell a little bit flat. Yes, there are other stories going on, and there are other things going on. And you do have to find a way to incorporate other wrestlers. But I don't know how many times we've got to see the girls who are taking place in an Elimination Chamber match, how many times we've got to see them wrestle, and how many different variations that we have to see them wrestle. I don't necessarily know if all that's necessary, needing them on both shows. Those were some of the issues that I had. But I think you're right. WWE, again, finds itself in a strange place, and I think you're right. Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn talking to each other on Monday Night Raw gave me goosebumps. I thought it was fantastic. And they're in a spot where they've got three guys who are basically crushing everything in front of them. And they've got two fantastic storylines. The problem is they've got one title. Because we're looking at the undisputed Universal Championship as one title, even though it's two belts. So you find yourself in a spot where we might come out with a fatal three-way for WrestleMania 39. Now, I know you and Kenny talked about this last week, but to me, it kind of feels like you're walking a dangerous line if you go this route, right? Like, I totally want to see all these guys in the ring fighting for a championship. But it is weird because you've got Sami Zayn, who is so incredibly over. He is white hot as a babyface. And you've done such a good job telling a story with Cody Rhodes. And he's hot as well. And both these guys, you can make a case, could dethrone Roman Reigns. Do we see this week at this pay-per-view, is there a chance where there's possibly some shenanigans that does lead to this three-way match? Do you think that's possible?
See, the part that has me intrigued is, what does Kevin Owens do? How does he work his way back? Does he obviously come in? Is there a DQ? It doesn't feel like
he's a major part of it. He is a major factor in all of this. And I think you're right. I think, again, you're on the right road, because he could sway the difference. Now, go ahead. I'll let you finish, but I've got some thoughts to kind of build off of your Kevin Owens thought.
Yeah, obviously my first thought is Montreal Screwjob. What could they do? Would they do it again? And so we're used to seeing it. And I guess it's kind of like that feeling where you're shielding yourself, where you and I definitely wanted Drew McIntyre to win overseas. Now, this is kind of has a feel of a similar pay-per-view of a magnitude of an overseas show. Like, you're not going to give Sami Zayn the title. You're just not. It doesn't make any sense, because then, Roman could be pissed. You could have the ultimate swerve. I mean, the ultimate pop would be Kevin Owens costs Roman Reigns the title. Now, could they, and I'm doing just a quick 30-second fantasy booking, could you veer off? You give the title to Sami Zayn, and then Sami Zayn goes on to fight Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania with a bunch of newness, and then Roman Reigns is so upset he revisits his Royal Rumble opponent in Kevin Owens in a feud match that doesn't involve the title, and you bring the Roman Reigns back into the mix at SummerSlam, which would be great since it's in Detroit. So you have an opportunity to throw everybody off, because everybody assumed it's Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, and everybody else now is starting to presume it's going to be a three-way. What if you just completely have a swerve and it's Sami Zayn, and you say, wow, this could be great. Sami Zayn taking on Cody Rhodes. We can tell a whole other story. And then we could also continue a 5-minute montage about the feud between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. It's so interesting. That's why this matchup will be the key thing going on, because what the hell is going to happen? What's Kevin Owens going to do? How does this play out? But all roads lead to three dudes in the main event. And it's okay, but it just has the feel of like there's no perfect answer.
going back for the longest time, we haven't really liked those triple threat matches for a championship. We generally like it one-on-one, mano-a-mano. Let's see what happens. But I think you're right. When you've got Kevin Owens, I think he is a major factor. Also, Jey Uso's a major factor. Mm-hmm. Where does his loyalty lie? Does it lie with the bloodline, or does it lie with Sami Zayn? We don't really know. And some backstage booking that's kind of come out is the way this was originally supposed to happen. And we might still get this. So if this plays out on Saturday night, don't be surprised. But Jey Uso is supposed to show up. He's supposed to interfere, and he's supposed to cost Sami the title. And that way you've got Sami and you've got Kevin Owens taking on the Usos at WrestleMania. So that's a possibility. But Kevin Owens was somebody who I never really even gave much thought of. I've been so focused, and I've had tunnel vision on what Jey Uso is going to do, that I haven't really thought of Kevin Owens all that much. But I think you're right. Kevin Owens plays a major role in all of this as well. And again, it helps go back to that build towards WrestleMania 39. I think any way you cut it, we're going to have a fantastic show tonight on Saturday for the Elimination Chamber. Any way you cut it, we're going to have a really good WrestleMania main event. And I think these are fantastic stories that we've got. And these are things that grip you and hook you in. And I think it's going to be awesome to watch. And I'm be sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm going to have goosebumps the entire match. I already know. I think it's going to be great. I do want to move on to some rumor and maybe some innuendo if you're open to it. What would you make of FTR possibly moving back to WWE? Now, this is off of the heels of Dax tweeting a picture with what looked like an image of part of a WWE contract. Now, FTR's contracts with AEW are set to expire in April, which puts them in line for WrestleMania or the Raw after WrestleMania. And look, there's been a lot of stuff going back and forth regarding contract tampering with WWE and AEW stars. I'm assuming that was probably an old contract, wasn't a new contract from WWE. But there's been a lot of teasing from specifically Dax with FTR possibly going back to WWE, getting back in with Triple H. They're of a similar mindset when it comes to wrestling. They both like that old school wrestling, especially when it comes to the booking. FTR and Dax, again, specifically, has been on record of saying whatever this next move is for FTR, this will probably be the final chapter for their wrestling career. Does it make sense for FTR to go back to WWE, or should they stay in AEW? Or you throw a wild card in there and do they hit the indie scene and then maybe make a pivot after that?
No, if you're going to get the Cody push, if you're going to get that guaranteed to you, like, hey, you're going to get the opportunity that you didn't get with Vince if we're going to put you over and let you have quality matches with the Usos and the Viking Raiders and other great tag teams, the Imperium. If you're going to get good feuds and you're going to get good storytelling, Triple H level storytelling, you sign on the dotted line. You can't sign fast enough, but you're going to need... It sounds like the dudes put in a lot of work and they're beat up. You know what I mean? They're taking time off. It sounds like that the years of wrestling and the way in which they wrestled has kind of beat them up. But it's crazy in that if you go back and look at their run in WWE, it was a less than stellar mid-card run. We talked about it ad nauseum. Like, dude, this team has something, and you're not giving them anything. You're giving them losses. You're putting them on main event. You're putting them on shows that are irrelevant. You're not giving them anything juicy. If you can give them good long-term storytelling, where maybe if you're like, okay, if it's not going to be Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens that take the title off the Usos, give it to us. We want to break the streak. Then you got to do it. It's just the way it is. And Triple H said it after the Rumble. And I don't know if you had an opportunity to go back and listen to his presser, but he said nobody does spectacle like we do. Could you imagine FTR shows up, SummerSlam build against the Usos, you get a storyline of just pure wrestling and no frills? Oh my God, dude, it'd be amazing. So it's look, everyone knows it. AEW's making strides, but they've taken a step backwards. They failed to capitalize on that little window that they had with Vince gone. And Triple H now grabbed the ball and is like doing 360 windmill dunks on AEW. And he's like, okay, you want to see storytelling? Here's a story. Here's a 1 year story that tops anything you've done over the next couple years, you know, and it's unfortunate for AEW, but it's produced, the competition has produced storytelling at WWE that leaves you really intrigued about what they could do in the future. So FTR has to come back. Yes, they should. They should right the ship. I wonder if they'll do it because AEW has a lot of advantages. Wrestling once a week, but they're starting to put together some house shows. Wrestling, it seems like you can wrestle till you're 55 at AEW.
Yeah, it really does. I think AEW does a really good job of preserving the wrestlers' bodies with basically their scheduling and how much they get on TV and how much they actually do. It does really feel like you can wrestle for an eternity at AEW. And I think wrestlers have come out and they've talked about it. The grind with AEW is not what the grind is with WWE. And that makes a bit of a difference. And that's something that FTR is going to have to take into consideration when they make this next move. We'll see where they end up basically it'll be like the middle of April when we'll kind of find out. So we'll see what takes place there. You want to get into some picks for Elimination Chamber, or was there anything else that really stood out to you from WWE this week?
No, let's go. I can't wait to see it. Let's kick it off. I'm ready to see what's going on at Elimination Chamber, Montreal. It's going to be fantastic.
All right, so for the picks, this is our first event of the season. We both start with a score of 0-0. We start fresh, and we kick it off with the Elimination Chamber match between Austin Theory, who is the United States champion, taking on Seth Rollins, Johnny Gargano, Bronson Reed, Damian Priest, and Montez Ford. Who do you have winning this one?
Man, it's tough because all signs point to maybe a push for Montez Ford. What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has that feeling, but I can't, I always look at Seth Rollins. I just have a hard time. He's at that AJ Styles level where how do you pick against Seth Rollins? I think that his obviously the Miz TV segment that he did on Raw was definitely notable, and it caught the internet by storm because dude can rock anything. Dude can just put on any kind of weird-ass outfit, and it's over. I got Seth Rollins winning this.
See, this one is tough because Austin Theory's done a fantastic job, right? Seth Rollins makes a ton of sense. Johnny Gargano, since his return, it's kind of been flat. Bronson Reed's a guy who I could see possibly winning this, as well as Damian Priest. These are two guys who I believe deserve big pushes and are getting the push, as well as Montez Ford. Montez Ford has had a bit of a hype train behind him for a little bit now. All that being said, I'm going to go with Austin Theory because I think we're building towards a match with John Cena at WrestleMania. So I'm going to go Austin Theory for my pick. And you took Montez Ford, or you took Seth Rollins, right?
Taking Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins. All right. So for the women's Elimination Chamber match, this is to determine the number one contender for the Raw Women's Championship. It'll be the right to take on Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 39. You've got Raquel Rodriguez and her back. You've got Liv Morgan. You've got Nikki Cross. You've got Asuka, Natalya, and Carmella. Sounds like a who's who in this match. This one sounds like pee break all day. All right, who do you got winning this one?
Listen, let's have some respect for these ladies, even though you're kind of making some sense here. I get you. What you're saying is give these ladies some story, give these ladies more than just, hey, we made Bianca Belair. Now that you made somebody, you got to kind of give her some love and give her an angle that's going to make sense. I think the money is with Raquel Rodriguez, but if it's not Raquel, I think it's going to be potentially an opportunity to showcase Asuka as well. Chick's over. Mm-hmm. She's got a lot of name value, and she's got a lot of intrigue. But I think the baddest woman on the planet right now, outside of the champs, is Raquel Rodriguez. So I think she's going to win it.
All right, I like that pick. And look, my top three in this match to win this are Asuka, Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, and probably in that order. And the reason for all of that is you look at what they did with the Royal Rumble. They really highlighted wrestlers at the Royal Rumble, and they really put them into storylines that are making sense and really trying to get them over. And Liv Morgan and Asuka were part of the final three that were in the Royal Rumble. Liv Morgan being number 2, Asuka being number 3. Raquel Rodriguez, since she's been up, she's had a little bit of a start and stop push. It really does feel like she is the one who was handpicked to be that star going forward. All that being said, I think the new version of Asuka, I think it's over. I would like to see a little bit of a different CGI graphic for her, something a little bit, I don't know, more dark, a little bit more eerie, get away from what she used to have. But I like this new character from Asuka. I'm going to go with Asuka. I think Asuka, Bianca Belair could be a really, really good match. I think the actual microphone build to it, probably not great. But I think the actual in-ring work will be fantastic. So I'm going to go Oscar for that one. We've got Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. Just a singles match. Whoever wins this match sounds like it's going to take on Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. It was kind of a weird segment that we got on SmackDown. Came out and beat up Top Dollar and B-Fabs and Ashante the Adonis, which how have they fallen since they've been brought back. Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt just came out and wrecked shop on basically 2 out of the 3 of them, and then challenged whoever wins this match. Look, I don't know where this one goes, because you want Brock Lesnar for WrestleMania. That makes sense. Bobby Lashley, I think, has done a fantastic job revitalizing his career. I really do feel like he's going back to the Hurt Business. I feel like that is going to become a thing again, because it was pretty popular for a moment before Vince destroyed it. I think Brock Lesnar is money for a spectacle like WrestleMania. Brock Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt. If you're looking to try to get Bray Wyatt's career back on track, him beating Brock Lesnar makes all the sense in the world to me, because right now Bray Wyatt, I'm just kind of bored. I'm over it. I don't necessarily care. So I think him beating Brock Lesnar, I think it's a bigger deal. I'm going to go with Brock Lesnar wins this match to lose at WrestleMania 39 to Bray Wyatt.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I do see the same thing. I just don't see where Bobby Lashley's done enough in terms of cachet to get the W. You had him get a W, which is good. You had him get some physicality on Brock. I don't think that a loss is going to totally tarnish the opportunity for Bobby moving forward. I think it's Brock Lesnar, and I think it's so money in the bank to have Brock Lesnar be over. It's just great. He's just a popular figure, and he's got like 15 different returns, and all of them have great pops, especially at the Royal Rumble. So I actually want to see Brock Lesnar win this, and to see what kind of storytelling could they do with Bray Wyatt going into WrestleMania.
So then we have Edge and Beth Phoenix, the Grit Couple, taking on Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley of the Judgment Day. It's a mixed tag team match. I think this is going to be the blow-off match. I hope this is going to be the blow-off match. I would love to move away from this storyline, because it really feels like it has been stuck in the mud. We haven't really gone anywhere with it. I think in this case, you have Edge and you have Beth Phoenix win this match. And the reason for that is, if the faces win, the heels can go on and do some other business. If the heels win, they'll continue to torment the faces. So I think you have the Grit Couple win. It's not necessarily ideal booking, because you want to make Rhea Ripley look as strong as possible going into WrestleMania. But I think you have Edge take the pin you have Finn Balor take the pin from Edge, and we kind of move on with our day. You can do something else if Edge is going to hang around for a little bit. Not really sure what his contract looks like, but I think you have Finn Balor put over Edge and Beth Phoenix. I think they win this match.
Yeah, if you get a chance on the Peacock, you have an opportunity. They had a feature of Beth Phoenix, and man, the work that she put in during her time, you really did get a sense of how underappreciated she was, and now she gets an opportunity after she gets named to the WWE Hall of Fame to have an opportunity to perform and be with Edge. And a couple weeks back, I think it was the week you were gone, Beth comes out and Edge is playing grab ass with her a couple times, and she looks back at him and is like, "Stop it!" And everyone's wife probably is like, "Gosh, you guys are all the same." And it was funny, as she's trying to portray this badass, you got Edge trying to pinch her ass a couple times. But it's nice to see Beth Phoenix get some story, get to see the Glamazon, because dude's a badass chick. You see the work she put in the ring, how much effort she did to help Edge get back, what she's able to do, the announce work she did. She's definitely an underrated gal in regards to the fact that she was given a push when she had her time. It just wasn't when the spotlight was at its peak or zenith, so it goes unnoticed. So I think she deserves some spotlight. She deserves her opportunities when she comes back to the Rumble and does some things. And maybe even this one, if there is a match that has the potential of having a wonky finish or a no finish, this might be it, where you have potentially they win, but by DQ, where it has the feel where Finn Balor and Rhea feel like, if you book it, they feel like they're going to lose, so they end up just doing some massive things that are cheating or involvement with Dom, or they just kidnap somebody and the lights go out and they go to the next match. But this one might be the candidate for the go grab a sandwich and pay attention passively. But in the end, it's a good feud, but I do see in some shape or form Edge and the lady, the Glamazon, taking it down.
All right, that leads us to our main event. This is the one that has you tuning in. This is the one that has you gripped to your seat. This is the one that I hope it gets anywhere from 30 to 55 minutes. You can give me an hour of this. I'll watch it all. I hope it's a fantastic match. I hope nobody gets hurt in the middle of it. I hope it's a great banger of a match. I hope this is 6 stars because the storytelling for this story has been unreal. You've got Roman Reigns defending his undisputed WWE Universal Championship, taking on Sami Zayn. There are multiple ways this match can finish. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, it's crazy because the scariest part about all of this is the fear that it's not going to be paid off. Could you imagine the crowd in Montreal getting screwed again? What Triple H could do to harken back to the memory? Hell, you even have Shawn Michaels come out there just for the fun, cheap pop. If you want to go back down memory lane, start the show and the first music that's hit is Shawn Michaels. That'd be ultimate level trolling. I'd love to see it. But I'm just, and it's fine. I guess we're all kind of in that mindset of, we've been let down before. We've gotten so much payout. WWE is like naturally in the flow of life due to fuck this up. But in the end, somehow, however we get there, it's probably going to end up leading toward those two individuals that are going to be in the match being at WrestleMania. So however you have it, maybe you have Cody Rhodes come in. Now, look, if you want to go fantasy booking, wouldn't make sense. But, obviously the thought pattern is when you say the word bloodline, it just always feels like you're missing Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. Like, I want Cody in the bloodline. Could you imagine Cody costs... Oh, Cody, you know what? He doesn't want... see, the problem is, Roman's the heel, but you have Cody cost Sami Zayn. He gets all that cheap heat in Montreal, and then he goes in and is like, I'm not letting you take my opportunity. Are you kidding me? To have a quick turn of like, how dare you take my shine? And you have Cody Rhodes kind of cost him. It builds so much intrigue with what Cody Rhodes, we didn't even talk about that. What could he do in this mix? Could he come down to the ring? Could he come down and do something? Maybe he comes out for a cheap pop and is the announcer or whatever. But in the end, I just think that it's traditional. I think that this is the culmination for Sami Zayn. I think the involvement of Kevin Owens will probably, like Kenny said as well, shift it towards tag team action at WrestleMania. So Jey Uso, it's going to be who gets involved and what their involvement will be. But in the end, I think Roman Reigns stands there amidst the loudest boos you've ever heard in the history of WWE. It's going to be the closest false finishes you've ever seen. Hopefully they don't do the bullshit where Sami wins it and they have we got to restart the match, which is among my worst angles where they restart matches after people have won. In my mind, it's Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and you just need to make it so that you tell the story that makes sense, the most sense, to bounce off wherever Sami Zayn's going to go for WrestleMania. It's got to make sense. I know it would be great if it was in the main event, but I think it's got to be some tie with Kevin Owens moving forward with the Usos.
I agree with you. I think in this, Roman Reigns comes out the winner. I see shenanigans all over the ending of this match. I just hope that the shenanigans don't leave a bad taste in the mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, it builds towards WrestleMania. It builds towards what's going to happen next for Sami. I just see Roman Reigns winning. I see Montreal being very disappointed again. And I feel like it's going to be a sad, sad day. So you got Roman Reigns as well. I've got Roman Reigns coming out the champion. We both have Edge and Beth Phoenix. Both have Bobby Lashley. Where we differ are in our Elimination Chamber matches. You've got Raquel Rodriguez and I've got Asuka. You've got Seth Rollins and I've got Austin Theory retaining. So it should be interesting to see what happens again. We start 0-0, brand new season, kicking off calling the card. So we'll see what takes place with this pay-per-view. Again, one of the more highly anticipated pay-per-views in such a long time because of some of the best storytelling we've got from WWE in forever. I want to get your take on what you thought of Dynamite because I thought it was meh. Yeah. I watched it, and usually when I watch wrestling for this podcast, I'm like, okay, what can I take out of this that we can talk about? What was good? What is something that was that was awesome that we can highlight? What was a real low light that we can kind of really delve into and break apart? What could we do, you and me, putting our minds together to make it better? What was there? And for Dynamite, I really felt like it was poorly paced. I felt like it was kind of a wet fart, and I don't really feel like there was a whole lot that was good. I don't really feel like there was anything that was necessarily horrible. It just kind of was a show. It felt like it was a show that was 2 hours long, but it might as well have been 3.5 hours long. It was just kind of there. It was, you could have put it on, it could have been background noise, and you'd have been fine.
Yeah, it's not good when the reviews are, hey, this is among the worst shows every day. So it's just, here's the thing. When the highlight of the week for AEW is Tony Khan tweeting Ariel Helwani for showing up on SmackDown, that's not good. Here's the thing that's starting to happen. You're putting on shows, but they're not delivering at the level of moving forward storylines that are intriguing. You know what I mean? Jon Moxley is bleeding every match. The interviews with Chris Jericho are starting to sound the same. The feuds are starting to sound the same. You know what I mean? It's kind of like where you have the construct of ideas and you're just plugging and playing the characters. There's got to be more uniqueness. There's got to be more intrigue. The Saraya angle is not hitting. Britt Baker, DMD, needs a boost. You know what I mean? It has to feel like everybody needs to, like, a 2 weeks off, take everybody away to the Bahamas, slow down, let everybody get high and ganja and chill out, and then let them kind of get their creative juices flowing. It just has the feel of, like, you know, you're just doing it over and over and over and over again. Like if you're recording a podcast for a daily podcast for 4 hours, and then like the Friday of a random June show, you're just kind of mailing it in. You're not doing the best work. So I look at it and I say that, hey, wait a minute. Take a step back and let's get some of these characters some more involvement. I mean, look, MJF is great. He does great promos, but they're all kind of now the same again in that, hey, I'm a badass. I'm a dickhead. Here's what I'm going to do to beat you. You got to highlight, like, you got to ride the momentum of Takeshita. You got to have intrigue. You got to put him in some matches. So after a beatdown, you don't feature him. Like, you don't have him in another segment. I'm like, I'm pissed off. I can't believe it. And, you know, I'm going to put this on the side, MJF, to get myself at the level where I'm going to kick your ass. And then you go out there and you have him beat the ass of somebody, you know, something unique. You got to, it's like you have the builds, but you're not going from level 2 to level 3. You're just kind of staying at level 2 and working on some other things that are not as interesting. So AEW took a step back this week. And like I said, the reviews online were just brutal.
Yeah, and I think you highlighting to Takeshita is a great point, right? This is a guy who there's a ton of fire behind. There's a ton of energy behind him. The fans want to see him win. This is a guy who I don't think has won. He's won, what, like one match in the last 4 months? Like, you put him on television and you just regularly have him lose. And this guy puts up great matches. Like, the booking doesn't necessarily make sense. And you give us matches. I think Rampage was a perfect example of it, right? So on Rampage, you end up getting the Elite versus AR Fox and the two brothers, Darius and Dante. And what you end up getting is you get a rematch of a match that nobody bought into before, and you're putting it at the very beginning of the show. You're having your champions open the show. Why not build towards that? Put that as your main event. Put that towards the back half. It doesn't necessarily make sense. And then you're going to end up closing your show with the appearance of Keith Lee, which is fine. It's fine. But it's like just the way you structure your programming isn't great. It's very poor. And there are matches where, like, things are going on and you're just like, I don't need to watch this. I can just fast forward through this. Like, I didn't realize that Rampage was on early this week. So when I did realize it, I was watching something on Netflix, and once that finished, I quickly jumped in, and there was a bunch of stuff that I just fast forwarded, just a bunch. You know, there were parts of the opening match between the Elite and Dante Martin and Darius Martin and AR Fox that I just kind of breezed through because I knew how this was going to end. So I fast forward the first 5 minutes, watch for 2 minutes, fast forward for another 3 minutes, watch for 2 minutes, fast forward to the end. And then you get to see the whole thing with House of Black, which we'll talk about here in a few moments. And like, that was kind of it. Then you got a couple of other matches. You're just kind of like, what is the point of watching this? Like, there's nothing here. Put that match on at the end. Have House of Black show up at the very, very end, and you go to Black on the House of Black. It just makes more sense. The way the shows are structured and the way they are paced is very, very poor. Doesn't keep your interest. Some of the longer-term storytelling, some of it is good. Some of it is very boring. You don't do a good enough job of coming back to highlight good young wrestlers. You end up putting on the same guys over and over and over, and you've got a deep roster.
Yeah.
You need to start elevating some of these guys from Dark and elevating some of these other guys that you have on other programming and putting them on. And let's be honest, right? I love what you're doing with Ring of Honor. I think it's fantastic that Ring of Honor exists. But what really is Ring of Honor right now? Ring of Honor is just a name. Ring of Honor isn't anything. There's nothing there for Ring of Honor. I know you're supposed to be going back to putting weekly programming on for Ring of Honor, but what is Ring of Honor really and truly right now? It's nothing. You've got all these dudes wearing these Ring of Honor belts like they mean something, and they show up on AEW all the time. You know what? You need to have a division. Keep Ring of Honor on Ring of Honor. Keep AEW on AEW. Put your AEW black guys on Ring of Honor. Do that. Get those guys over. And then you know what? Use Ring of Honor as your feeder system, almost like what NXT is. Do it that way. Because you having this crisscross, it just doesn't necessarily work. Look, I love seeing Mark Briscoe. I love seeing him show up. And if you want to keep him on AEW, keep him on AEW. He doesn't necessarily need to be on Ring of Honor. And some of the guys who you have wearing belts don't need to be on Ring of Honor. But some of the dudes you have on AEW Dark probably should be on Ring of Honor. Do that. Let it be what it is. To me, it was completely frustrating watching Dynamite and Rampage. Was there anything from Rampage that you liked this week? Again, I think probably the biggest thing that you could take out of it was House of Black showing up and challenging the Elite. And that is like maybe the one thing that gets me a little bit interested. But overall, I just kind of thought, again, AEW just gave you a dirty diaper.
Yeah, it's just not as good. And I look at it and I say, I thought Dynamite was okay in regards to the wrestling, but the storytelling going along with it is not as intriguing. I obviously like to see what's going on with Chris Jericho and his feuds and everything going on. You know, you just feel like there's so many talented wrestlers that need to kind of take a step forward. The Ass Boys, the Acclaim kind of needs a little bit of a kind of new twist and a new thing to kind of boost that. The tag team division probably just, maybe the trios division as well kind of needs a little bit of an infusion. You need FTR back. You kind of need a little bit more of just some freshness. I just think just a fresh coat of paint. So it was there. Yeah, like you said, when you messaged me, I saw. I'm like, man, Keith Lee is looking rough. Like you're supposed to establish this dude as a badass. Instead, he looks like a grifter, and he looks like somebody that's been through a bender and had to get out there and do a show. So that's not the style in which you want to do it. So I'm curious to see what they do moving forward because they do got to build. And unfortunately, right now, outside of maybe Wardlow and MJF and things like that, some of the storylines aren't exactly gripping heading into the pay-per-view.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I think that's an accurate assessment. And again, this is the thing. They're building towards one of their bigger pay-per-views. And where are we going with stuff? Like, some of the storylines are kind of like, meh. And like you said, the re-debut of Keith Lee comes out looking like he basically crawled out of a home. Like, I didn't realize Keith Lee's hair was gray. I didn't realize it was as patchy as it was. Like, Keith Lee, shave your head. I shave my head now. It's okay. Be bald. It's fine. Bald is beautiful. It's cool. Just stop fighting it. I feel like when Tony Khan is obviously the main booker, right? He is the guy who controls all the power in AEW. And there was a remark this past week where I think it was from Conan, who basically called Tony Khan a major mark. Yeah. And what he does is he ends up marking out for guys that he likes. And I've called Tony Khan a mark. I think Tony Khan's a mark. MJF has called Tony Khan a mark. And what you're seeing those mark tendencies show up in his booking. And basically what being a mark is, it's like being a huge fanboy for certain wrestlers. And it really hurts your booking because you're trying to get over the guys that you like. You're trying to get over the guys that you're pals with, guys that you're friends with. And you hear a lot of disgruntled wrestlers basically saying the same thing. Like, well, if I was buddies with the head booker, it would be cool. But I'm not, so I'm lower on the card. Like, you hear that stuff all the time coming out of AEW. It sounds like it's a little bit of a mess. I don't necessarily know if Tony Khan should be left in charge of doing the booking or if there should be somebody else put in charge. I mean, it's one of those things where, yeah, I get it. It's your company. But at a certain point, maybe you just have the final say over creative, right? You're not necessarily the main booker. You have somebody else coming in and doing the booking, but you hold the executive right to change things if you don't like the direction it's going. And you let somebody else who's a little bit more of a talent at it do it. Maybe it gives you better storylines. Maybe it gives you something better. I'm not sure. AEW really does feel like the last couple weeks it's kind of fallen a little bit. And whether that's because WWE has really ratcheted up the competition and WWE looks like it is a much better show and it looks like the creative runs with a much smoother process, perhaps. I'm not sure. But AEW right now is sometimes very, very frustrating to watch. It is a chore on some nights. Now we have to pick, and it's going to be very, very hard because it's like picking between turds. Which turd was your show of the week?
Yeah, it's super tough, man. It's tough. But I always go with pops. So the pop that Sami Zayn earned the moment he walks out there, it kind of just felt like a career-defining moment. Like, all that pain, all the stitches, all the shitty angles, all the shit I had to do with Vince just kind of paid off. And that's what these guys live for. Let's be honest. You're not, part of the love is not getting your ass beat and traveling the world and working 6 days a week and being away from family and working every fucking holiday. It's when you do all the work and you return to your hometown, to your music, and everybody's screaming at the top of their lungs, you created a moment. And boy, it's now featured everywhere. And my kid loved it. I loved it. I've gone back and watched it. It's just great. Those are the moments you go back to because matches are tough. You know, no one's going to go back and, oh my God, look at Sammy. He transitioned from a headlock to a suplex. And then you kind of live for the moments. And some of the biggest things I love are entrances, returns, when the music hits and the pop. You know, obviously Hogan and Rock staring at each other at the beginning of WrestleMania 18. Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. You have Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels flying down to the ring at WrestleMania 12. That's a moment that will live, you know, Triple H's return. And that moment in Montreal, man, those fans are awesome. They need to do a lot. I mean, I think it's great the way they pace it out. But if you want to go back and relive some of the Montreal memories, it's great. After WrestleMania 18, their next show on Raw was Hulk Hogan opening. And the crowd just went apeshit for like 6 minutes just cheering for Hogan. And, man, the crowd in Montreal, they just love their wrestling. And they showed appreciation for their guys. So, for me, even though it wasn't great, SmackDown is the show of the week.
Yeah, I agree with you. SmackDown was not great. But when Sami Zayn gets, I counted, I watched the clock. It was over 6 minutes long, the standing ovation he got.
Wow.
Over 6 minutes, these people would not sit down. And at a certain point, he basically had to cut them off because they had to wrap the show up. I really felt like there was something else planned for that segment. Like you said, I kind of felt like Roman Reigns was supposed to come out and attack him, and they were supposed to go off air with some heat. But the standing ovation was so long, they had to adjust things on the fly. And I feel like Sami Zayn's promo was cut incredibly short, and they gave him the wrap-up sign because they were up against it.
Yeah.
Look, Fox isn't going to give you an overrun. Fox isn't going to let you run into 10:03, 10:04. They've got local news they got to go to. So you're off the air at basically 9:58, and we're moving on because we got commercials we got to cram in here. So I thought they were going to do something different to end it. But the 6 minute standing ovation in Sami Zayn's promo was fantastic. If you get any time, you have any chances, go watch SmackDown. I would say fast forward to the final 10 minutes and just watch it. Just bask in the glow of Sami Zayn and the standing ovation he got. It was magical. It almost brought a tear to my eye. Sami Zayn, at a certain point, you could see him biting his lip, trying not to cry because he was so taken aback by all the emotion and by the praise that he received. It was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. SmackDown's getting the point of the week, and SmackDown is your show of the week. Would you like some news and notes this week?
Absolutely. But before we get to one of my favorite segments of our podcast, Fun Game. From the moment his music hits to the time they lock up, combined entrances with Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns. With Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns, 10 minutes. From the time Sami Zayn's music hits, then you're going to probably have, I think, 4 minutes cheering. Obviously, one of a loud ovation. Now we're kind of noticing that Roman Reigns' entrance is 6 minutes on average. So over under 10 minutes from the time Sami's music hits till our first lockup.
I'm going to say over. I'm going to go 12 minutes.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. So we'll hit the clock, guys, and pay attention too, because man, it's long. But the crazy part is it's gripping. It's cool. Like Roman's like, I'm just gonna stand here a minute, and dude, it's a long time. If you just stand somewhere for a minute, like in some dark matches before house shows, the entire match start to finish with entrances is 4 minutes. It's crazy how fast people can get to the ring. It just goes to show you how much precious time he is allowed to just stand there and be himself, which is valuable. He's not doing anything but having his music play. So I think as well, it's funny. I maybe undercut it. 10 minutes. 10 minutes, guys. Start the clock and let's see. All right, guys, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What's made your list?
We have a little bit of an update on Thunder Rosa and a possible return to the ring. Rosa has been out since August of 2022, and the details of her injury are still somewhat vague. It was said that she was sidelined with a herniated or bulging disc. The injury forced her to relinquish her AEW championship. Last week, Rosa did return to AEW Dynamite in the capacity of rejoining the Spanish announce team for the show. This led to some speculation that she could be back in the ring soon, but it sounds like it's a little bit away. Fightful Select reports that Thunder Rosa is still not ready for an in-ring return as of yet, and Dave Meltzer has pointed to late February, March as an expected return time. In the meantime, Rosa announced on Twitter on Tuesday that she will officially be part of the Spanish announce team and an on-air personality while she rehabs. Thunder Rosa also jumped into the backstage area, and they had a sit-down meeting with all of the women. If you remember, Thunder Rosa really aggravated quite a few of the lady wrestlers, whether it was working too stiff, whether it was sandbagging in some matches, or whether it was just the way she carried and conducted herself. A lot of the women, especially Britt Baker, who really seems to be the leader of the ladies' locker room, were very, very upset with Thunder Rosa while she was champion. So she had to address all of that. It sounds like it was a very productive meeting. We'll see what happens when Thunder Rosa gets back in the ring when she's able to make her return. In WWE news, they may be a major player for some of New Japan's top talent. Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio said, the sources said that there's a much bigger major free agent to play than Jay White right now. Whomever that person is, they are said to be WWE's current priority. Several New Japan stars have been teased or rumored for WWE recently, namely Jay White, Hikuleo, and Tama Tonga. However, the identity of this major free agent is still a mystery right now. Also, Jay White's match against Eddie Kingston at Battle of the Valley, which will be taking place today, was changed to a loser leaves New Japan. Now, Kota Ibushi is still a major player that is out there. He's a free agent. In the past, he said he wanted to work with some big names in AEW. Also, there is a connection to Kenny Omega, as they were the Golden Lovers tag team in New Japan. He also recently revealed that he previously turned down some big money from AEW in 2018 when he had contract talks with Tony Khan. Now, Ibushi recently laid out his idea for what he could bring to WWE. In a conversation with Dark Persuko Flo-san, I don't really know what that is. I'm assuming it's a Japanese podcast. It was revealed that Ibushi would certainly work with WWE if he had the opportunity to train and create the next generation of wrestlers at the WWE Performance Center, as well as having some high-profile matches. Ibushi really wants to get his own wrestling school started, so this would be a way for him to kind of merge that passion with WWE. Ibushi could be the bigger name free agent that is being speculated on. Currently, he is announced for GCW's Josh Barnett's Bloodsport on March 30th and Joey Janela's Spring Break on March 31st. Mind you, WrestleMania takes place on April 1st and April 2nd this year, leading to the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania taking place on April 3rd. So everything could line up where it's Ibushi as the big name free agent. Now in some sad news, legendary promoter Jerry Jarrett passed away on Tuesday. PW Insider was the first to report the passing of Jerry Jarrett at the age of 80. Jarrett is a former wrestler and one of the all-time great wrestling promoters who headed up the Memphis wrestling territory for decades before selling it to exit the business in the mid-1990s. Now, Jerry is the father of current AEW star and WWE Hall of Famer Jeff Jarrett. Jerry returned to the business and founded and launched TNA, now Impact Wrestling, with Jeff in 2002. The Jarretts would later sell their stake in TNA. Jerry's reach and influence on the wrestling industry was broad and helped shape and create a ton of stars. Jerry Jarrett is survived by his son, Jeff, who is still in the wrestling business. As we mentioned, he's on AEW. And that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Even though he's sickly, even though he's not on 100% health, dude brings
I sound like shit today, man. I'm so sorry. I sound like garbage.
It doesn't matter. It's all great. It adds the spice, man. It's awesome in regards to the fact that you're cruising, boozing, bruising, having a good time. So it's well-deserved, man. Even Chris Jericho goes on booze cruises. It's okay. You know, you don't have to reveal that you went on some swingers cruise. It's no big deal. I mean, it's normal. It's all fun. It's all good, man. What we do in our private lives is all private. Nobody's going to air it. I mean, come on. So,
I wish it was a swingers cruise. Would have been a lot better than what I was on.
So did you hit any?
I'd have some cool stories to at least come back and tell you.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll for sure share any of the European beaches or anything like that, clothing optional, or everybody had to keep their junk in their pants throughout the whole trip?
No, everybody was clothed. There was one lady who, at the very end of the trip, the very last night, she was hammered, and she was a swinger. It was her husband, and whoever her little boy toy was.
Yeah.
She was wearing the shortest dress possible with no bra, big old beer belly. She ended up flashing everybody her vagina. It was not nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like there's a lot more people into that lifestyle than really let on. And in this day and age, everyone's like, let your freak flag fly. So it's definitely different in Europe, because on my honeymoon, it was the same thing. People just walking around without any clothes on, and you're just like, all right, these Europeans, maybe they're onto something. So real interesting stuff, but I'm glad you're back. It was interesting, but I do think that tonight's pay-per-view will be something legendary to speak of, and we'll see if Kenny was right. He's more on the angle of thinking it's going to be more involved with Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. Kenny had a wild theory. He thought that Sami and Jey were going to pair up and face off against Solo and Jimmy, and to go.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that. It's a different take.
It's different, but I don't see that happening in any capacity. So I can't wait to see it. Break it all down. Message. Follow along with us at Detroit Podcast. We're going to be watching, paying attention to the pay-per-view as it goes down. I'm curious to see. This is the big one. This is the culmination of what's going to happen. And kudos to Cody Rhodes and Sami for having probably the promo of the week in regards to kind of talking about WrestleMania. And so this WrestleMania season is going to be very intriguing, and I think it's just top heavy. And that's the payoff, is who's going to end up leaving California and SoFi Stadium as the Universal Undisputed WWE Champion. My money, I hope it's Cody Rhodes, but I can't wait to see all the stories as it leads up to one of the biggest shows of all time. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you like what you're hearing, leave a nice review. Hit that iTunes and leave a nice 5-star review. Tell us how much you love us. A couple new reviews this week have been awesome. Thank you guys for your insights. Loving it that you guys like that we just cuss like sailors and keep it off the cuff. Mm-hmm. Definitely not politically correct. So I appreciate those reviews and things like that. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. This podcast has come to a close. Let's check back next week and review the Elimination Chamber.